Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this Info Day, Exploitation Opportunities in EIC Pathfinder. Well, my name is Antonio Carbone. I'm National Contact Point in Italy, and I'm also Project Coordinator of Access to EIC, which is the European network of EIC National Contact Point, and together with the European Commission, of course, is main organizer of this event. Why this event today? First of all, to talk about the EIC Pathfinder with particular reference to the last call, the last deadline of the FET Innovation Launchpad, which has been scheduled on 14th of October. As you can see from this slide, the agenda of today is quite dense. We have a couple of hours to discuss about, first of all, together with the Commission, about the futures, tips and tricks of the FET Innovation Launchpad. In the second session, we have a small roundtable between my colleague Marta Calderaro and the so-called success cases. So first of all, a research team represented by a single quantum company, which has been beneficiaries of a FET Open, EIC Transition to Innovation Activities, and a FET Innovation Launchpad, as well as Brendan Sullivan from Politecnico di Milano on behalf of FET Briefing Project, who carried out a deep analysis on the FET Innovation Launchpad. In the end of today, another colleague of ours, another national contact point, Luis Guerra, is going to present a new tool developed by Access to EIC to facilitate, let me say, to facilitate the life of researchers when we talk about how to exploit research results, technology results towards the market. Well, I think this is the topic of today. This is the challenge of the FET Innovation Launchpad and more in general of the transition activities, technology transfer activities under Horizon 2020, under the current EIC pilot, under the future Horizon Europe and fully fledged EIC under Horizon Europe. So in this specific case, how to turn results from FET-funded projects, FET Open, FET Proactive, both in FP7 and Horizon 2020 EIC, into disruptive innovation, which is also the central topic under the European Innovation Council. It's a challenge. It's not easy. The challenge is to create a fertile ground for those results to get mature to a level where exploitation and investment opportunities can start to be discussed. This is also the aim of the FET Innovation Launchpad. In a few minutes, I leave the floor to Marco Giorgini from Research Executive Agency of the European Commission, in particular from the new Pathfinder Task Force. Let me just say and let me show as Access to EIC what we can offer, because it's a challenge also for us as national contact points. I mean, in this slide, you can see a number of project activities, tools, services developed by NCPs for applicants. We know very well that EIC is a mix of different funding schemes covering different stages of development and addressing to different constituencies, from very basic and advanced research under the Pathfinder with FET Open and Proactive, till the market, till the scaling up of startup and SMEs under the accelerator. In the middle, we have what we can call maybe now, Marco, transition to innovation activities, including the Launchpad. It's something quite challenging, yes, but quite crucial for the success of the whole EIC, because under the EIC, at the basis of EIC, there is a specific principle, which is also the seamless support across the value chain through the several funding schemes under the EIC, under Horizon Europe. So that's why under Access to EIC, we developed a number of tools, activities, and support for the different type of applicants. My colleague Luis Guerra, again, in the end of this day, will talk about the new toolbox for R&D results, how to exploit those results towards the business. As you can see in this slide, it's also important to understand how those schemes and how the several tools covers the value chain. In terms of technology readiness level, yes, this is quite familiar under the Horizon 2020 jargon, but also in terms of market readiness level, which is important as well. I don't want to spend too time because, again, we have a lot of, let's say, content today. As Access to EIC, as national contact point, of course, we are at your complete disposal with a number of support activities, initiatives, and training events, and so on. So consider your local national contact point as entry point for Horizon 2020, for EIC, in this case for the FET Innovation Launchpad. You have around 1 month to fine-tune and better set up, better draft your application in view of the deadline of 14th of October. Access to EIC is the network, again, of the EIC National Contact Point. You can find out on our website a number of tools, some registration of events, videos, presentations that can facilitate your life when you are submitting an application. Let me say also that, let me remind that next week the Commission organized the big R&I Days, which is now, I would say, this is the second edition, if I'm not wrong, but let me say that this is the big European Commission event with reference to the framework program, Horizon 2020 and Horizon Europe. This year, across the 3 days of the R&I Days, there will be also an EIC hub with a lot of sessions dedicated to the world of the EIC. One of them is moderated, is organized also by Access to EIC, still on this topic, still on the transition activities, still on the concept of seamless support, bridge between research and market, bridge between Pathfinder and Accelerator, which again is a big challenge. So it will be also interesting to understand from the Commission and other stakeholders what's going on towards Horizon Europe, towards the next 7 years of EIC under Horizon Europe. Last slide on my side, our contacts, the contacts of national contact points, Access to EIC, the European Commission, and so on. Before leaving the floor to Marco Giorgini, let me go back to the agenda of today. You participants, we are happy because we are around 100 participants right now, which is a quite good number considering that the eligibility for FET Innovation Launchpad is limited to those applicants who already got funded under a FET project or who already got an agreement with the beneficiaries of a previous FET-funded project. By the way, Marco Giorgini from European Commission will explain you more into detail the main features of the FET Innovation Launchpad. You participants, you attendees can interact with the speakers, with the Commission, and later on with the other speakers through the chat. So please type your questions, your request of clarification through the chat. And me and my colleague Marta Calderaro will also take this question and address those questions to the several speakers. The presentations, but also the recording of this session will be available in the next few days on the Access to EIC website. You will be informed as well through a specific mail. So I think we can start now with the Commission. And of course, I wish you a nice event. I'm sure that it will be fully of interesting content and information and suggestions for your application. Marco Giorgini, thank you so much to be here. I'm going to leave you also the role of presenter, and you can start. You can turn on your mic and your camera to start. Thank you so much.
Good morning all. Thank you, Antonio, for this introduction. I'm moving now to the presentation. I'm going to be quite quick on the first slides. These are something that you will find also in the work program, and I'm going to spend a bit more time on the last few slides, where in fact I'm giving some more clarification and stressing probably elements that are not so clear or not so evident in the work program description, or that are new compared to the previous call. So the spirit of FET Innovation Launchpad is aiming to turning results from FET-funded projects into societal and economic innovation. So the applicants, the successful applicants, will receive €100,000, aiming to increase the investment readiness of their idea, rather than the technology readiness level. So essentially, don't focus on increasing their technology readiness level in your application. The scope is essentially about individual or collaborative actions that have a length of maximum 8 months, one legal entity or a consortium. This is something that provides really maximum flexibility, and really the scope is not scientific. The idea is to get out of the lab for the proponent and investigate non-scientific aspects. So the intention, the aim is to move, is to start a process, not to conclude, not to arrive to the commercial or social innovation. Is really to start, not to end with commercialization. Also because €100,000 are often not sufficient to conclude this process. Limited. This is important, I think, because in the past many proposals were describing a lot of technology development. So limited, low-risk technology development can be supported, but it needs to be limited and low-risk, as long as it has a clear and necessary role in a broader proposed innovation strategy and plan. So what does this mean? It means that if your idea requires some small tuning, some small prototype refinement to be shown to users, to be shown to potential partner, industrial partner or financial partner, then this is allowed. This small development is allowed, but don't spend most of the budget in this technology development, and not even, I would say, 50%. It really should be something minor in the budget of the proposal. So the expected impacts are increased value creation from FET projects by picking up innovation opportunities, improved societal and market acceptance of concrete high potential innovation from FET projects, stimulating, supporting, and rewarding an open, proactive mindset towards exploitation beyond the research world. So this is, I think it's particularly important, is moving out of the research world, and if you are a scientist, if you are a researcher, start talking with your users, with potential partners, and rather than your peers, researchers. And of course, the expected impact is also contributing to the competitiveness of European industry and economy by seeding future growth and the creation of jobs. So what kind of activities are possible? This is a list that is also present in the work program: definition of a commercialization process, market and competitiveness analysis, technology assessment, verification of innovation potential, consolidation of intellectual property rights, business cases development. There are more examples in the work program. I think what is most important is that you involve potential users in seeing and discussing the features of your idea, and even if possible showing this idea a prototype or something similar, and really try to measure the interest of the potential future users. This, I think, it's critical. Eligible FET projects results. So there are specific conditions for eligibility of FET projects that can start at this FET Innovation Launchpad. These projects must be running, ongoing process, or recently finished FET RIA projects. This means that CSA cannot start an innovation launchpad, and if they are finished, they need to be recently finished. This means that the FET project should have its actual end date after 14 of October of last year. So at the date of the cutoff in the next month, the FET projects need to be ended not before 1 year. So 14 of October of last year. So there are more admissibility and eligibility conditions. So for applicants from the linked FET projects, proposal must include a declaration by the coordinator of the necessary rights and ownership of results to be exploited, as described in the proposal. This declaration is in fact a tick in the box, in the form box that we will show later. For applicants that are not owner of the results, in this case, applicant must provide a letter from the relevant beneficiary or beneficiaries of the previous FET projects that own the result, that confirms the existence of the necessary agreement with the coordinator of the current proposal, including on IPR. We receive many questions about this. Why don't we provide a template? Because essentially there is no predefined template. These kind of agreements might be of any kind, and this is essentially we are interested in you showing that you are taking care, you're worrying about the rights of the owner of the previous results. You need to think about this. This is something we analyze in the perspective if you have really taken into account this issue. So there are no prescriptions how to prepare this declaration, this letter. So points of attention. These come from previous proposals that didn't pay sufficient attention and were either scored low or considered ineligible or inadmissible. So for the first time, 2020 is a lump sum. This is a simplified instrument. This means that there will be no financial reporting during the project, but you will need to put more information in the proposal, and you will also need to upload an additional annex that we will see later. So duration of the proposal no longer than 18 months. Budget must be 100,000 euro. no more, no less. In the previous proposal, a smaller amount were accepted, higher amount were deemed considered inadmissible. This time we want 100,000 euro precise amount. No more than 7 pages. There is no more cover page, so you start immediately with the section 1. Excellent. And the length of the 7 pages is referred to the 3 sections. So excellence, impact, and quality of the implementation. Section from 1 to 3. So please do not foresee complex work plan, too many deliverables, too many milestones. This is a relatively small amount. We want you to do things rather than write deliverables, check milestone, and follow a complex work plan. I would say that 1 or 2 work packages are normally sufficient to describe the activities. 2-3 deliverables are more than sufficient, and probably 1 milestone in the middle of the project. It's 1 or 2 milestones are sufficient. Of course, you are free. I mean, you can do whatever you want in your proposal, but these are suggestions not to make a too complex proposal. Don't devote most of the budget to prototype development. I'm repeating it now, but I said it already. Don't set unrealistic target. In your proposal, you are not expected to come to the commercialization phase. You are expected to start a process that will lead to a commercialization phase or the adoption by the society of a solution, but it's not the ultimate goal to reach during this project. I repeat it again, no new or continuation of research and development work. And also, if you are a university or a research institute, the project should not foresee the outright sale of the technology. So you should start a commercialization and exploitation process, but not simply selling the technology to someone else that will do the exploitation. So if you envisage this, you should involve this part already in the project. So we want to see in the project who will exploit the technology, or at least understand how it's going to be exploited and the way it will be exploited. We don't want to see a black box where someone else will do whatever they want, essentially. So let's move on. Okay, let's come to the specificity of this lump sum pilot. So applicants will need to provide a more detailed description about the efforts and the resources that the applicants commit to mobilize for the predefined lump sum of 100,000 euro. You will need to split this amount per work package and per beneficiary, and you will need to put these amounts in the Excel file that you can download from the edit proposal page. And And of course, if the letter and the Excel file needs to be submitted in the application. The advantage of providing more information, more detail now is that there will be no actual cost reporting, no timesheet and no financial audit. You will just need to report about the completion of the work package, the result. So the project officer, together with the experts, will assess the completion of the work and not the financials that you are reporting. You will not be asked to keep all the financial documents for future financial audits, because this will not be possible. And if a work package will not be completed during the project execution, there will be a partial payment. So payment will be made based on the completion of the work package. Admissibility and eligibility, these are the normal eligibility and admissibility condition: at least one legal entity established in a member state, submitted in the electronic submission system, readable, accessible and printable, complete, proved operational capacity to the CVs, publication, infrastructure, the description of third parties, and still remember that a draft plan for exploitation and dissemination is a requirement in all H2020 proposal. Of course, this as long as 7 pages proposal can allow. So I expect probably a very small section, probably 10 lines, 20 lines maximum, of description of how you will envisage exploitation and dissemination of the result of the Innovation Launchpad projects. Let's come to the specific of the Innovation Launchpad. You will need to put the reference to the FET project acronym from which the results are coming, and also the ID number. And you will need to confirm that you have the necessary agreement, ticking this box, but also please read the note. You must include a letter from the owner, if the owner is not part of the Innovation Launchpad proposal. Now we come to the specificity of the lump sum project. Here you see a print screen of the Excel file that you can download. You see it here below download part B templates. And you need to upload it. You see in the print screen here at the bottom of the page, the template. Please follow the instruction that you can find in the first tab of the Excel template. Adjust the budget to be 100,000 euro sharp. And there are more requirements. Please, once you have filled the Excel table, the Excel template, and uploaded, also make sure that the information in the budget section of the forms and in the tables of the Part B technical annex are also filled. Here you can see, for example, a print screen of table 3.3a, justification of other direct costs. This list of justification, of course, needs to be provided if these other direct costs exceed the 15% of the direct and personal cost, and then a list of the work package. This also needs to be coherent with what you have put in the Excel table. So we are coming to end. Once you are a successful FET Innovation Launchpad project, you will receive not only €100,000, but also up to 12 days of business coaching. We have received extremely good feedback about the quality of these coaches. In this, there are approximately 1,000 coaches to choose from, and these are really high profile in the industry in Europe, having launched startups, having been successful in commercial exploitation, and so on, having a very important knowledge of specific industries and market. So we will have a budget of 3 million. This means that we will fund 30 proposals. This is quite, the first is the highest number so far that we have as a capacity. And if we consider that there are normally not many, few tenths of application, 30 proposal funded is really a very interesting success rate. Last slide, please. If you have questions after this presentation, submit them to this mailbox, and we will try to answer as soon as possible. I think I've finished my presentation. If you have any question, feel free to post it in the chat box, in the question and answer. And
yes, Marco, we have some of them.
Please.
Okay, the first question is more a clarification. Are the 100K per proposal or per partner within the proposal? It's more a clarification.
No, it's €100,000 per proposal. So if you have 2 partners, you can split it how you think is better. You can have 10,000 for one partner and 90,000 for the other. You can have 50-50 or whatever split you think is necessary. You can have also, of course, more than 2 partners, 3, even 4 partners we had in the past, but I don't consider it very useful because of course there are costs in coordination, and so I think try to maximize the impact on really who will exploit the idea.
Okay, thank you. Then we have another question. If during the FET Launchpad a new startup based on the project will be established, would it be possible to transfer the leftover funds there?
Of course, if you are planning to start a company during the project, we can do an amendment. We have done it in the past, and include the startup in the consortium and assign part of the funds, transfer part of the funds to the startup. But consider also that you will have normally 3 months between being formed and 2-3 months between being formed about the successful application and the signature of the grant. So in this period, you can start already the company and make it part of the grant from the very start of the grant. So we will include this during the grant agreement preparation, and you can even describe it in the proposal. If we are successful, we start the company, and this will join the consortium together with the university or the research center or another company that is useful for starting the exploitation process.
Thank you, Marco. Then we have another question, which is more dedicated to the declaration to be undersigned by the owner of the IP, of the results to be exploited. Do we have a template for this? Which kind of information do you want there?
No, we don't have a template, and we don't want to provide a template. So let's make an example. The university has developed, has completed a FET project. They find they have a new way, a new technology to do synthetic diamond, which is much more economical than the normal one. So essentially, the university is the owner, but there is no interest in the university in starting this exploitation process. But there is, I don't know, an SME, a company that is interested in taking up this result and start and investigate the exploitation possibility, do market research, see competitors, and so on. So in this case, the SME needs to have a letter from the university saying, okay, the university is the owner of this technology, and we are happy, we have the necessary agreement with the company to start an exploitation process and to engage in this project. These are the information that needs to be in the letter. Do you want to provide more details? You have already, I don't know, a license agreement, you are negotiating an agreement, it's fine, but it's not necessary. You need to say that the university needs to say that it's happy and agrees with the project and starting the exploitation process.
Okay, we have other questions for you. Okay, the first question is related to work packages. Do you allow to have only one work package?
Yes.
Okay.
In the past, we even had no work package indication. This time is necessary. So one work package is sufficient for one partner is the minimum. If you have one partner and you don't specify work package, first, you're not filling the Excel table correctly, because you need to have at least one work package, and you might not be even evaluated because you might be considered not admissible.
Okay.
So one work package is sufficient.
Okay. So there isn't, of course, any expectation regarding the amounts, the distributed amount between additional work packages. So it's up to the consortium to decide.
Yes.
Of course. And actually, there is an interesting question related to the technology readiness levels. So if the project is situated at TRL 3, are prototyping activities eligible to reach TRL 5 or 6?
Well, yes, but if you spend all the budget in prototyping, it's not going to be considered well. It's not going to be evaluated very well. The objective of this call is not to increase the technology readiness level, but to make the case for investors or users to look for your solution. In fact, if the prototyping needs to prove some technology issue, then it's not going to be perceived well. You should try to involve partners and users. If you don't have a prototype yet, but you might have something that is earlier than a prototype, you have a proof of concept in laboratory, you show the results to partners and to users, and you ask them, would you be interested if I manage to progress in this, in creating a prototype or creating a product, creating a service? You need to, these 100,000 are necessary to prove the interest of the market, to prove the interest of the users or partners or investors, rather than prove that the technology that can move from proof of concept to prototype. It did happen in the past that we funded prototype, but it was on exceptional cases. There was also the proof that investors were involved, partners were involved, users were involved also, because you need to have their input to define which kind of prototype you want to create. You see, if it is for building the prototype for the sake of prototype, don't really try not to spend too much budget on this. Prototype is possible, but not for most of the budget of the proposal. And you should really focus on involving users and partners and investors.
Thank you. Thank you for this. This was actually in line with another question which was asking regarding market feasibility. It can be one of the activities along with prototyping, of course.
Of course.
Of course. So actually related to the eligibility conditions, just a clarification regarding the eligibility conditions. There is a proposal which is asking if the organization from a FET open or FET proactive project, research and innovation projects, of course, research and innovation activities, are eligible to apply for this FET Innovation Launchpad. Of course, yes. And if a legal entity and one or more linked third parties can be eligible for the proposal. So one legal entity and then different linked third parties.
Yes, any configuration is possible, provided that even you can have a proposal submitted by someone, by two entities that were not involved at all in the previous FET project. But in that case, you need the letter of consent, the letter of from the owner that was part of the FET project. So any configuration is possible, provided that there is this letter from the owner. So if the owner is not in the Innovation Launchpad.
Okay, and then just the final one concerning the dissemination activities. Since this is actually a limited budget, what do you expect as dissemination activities here?
Where dissemination activities here, it's really expected very minimum. So it's normally a web page, not even a website. You can devote a web page for within your organization to the project, where in fact you describe the project at the Innovation Launchpad project, what you expect and so on. And you acknowledge the funding. And I mean, here the intent is really even no dissemination if you think that you need to stay secretive. It could be fine, but there should be at least one web page of description of the project where you put really the abstract and the minimum information. In any case, the abstract and the partner are public because they will be published in the core of this database. So a web page from your organization describing the project is sufficient, like a dissemination.
Okay. Thank you, Marco. Of course, we have more questions, but as you have said, the proposer can write to you or can actually access all the information through the national contact points. We are here for you at national level. So I'm going to thank you, Marco, for the presentation.
Thank you all.
I'm going to now take the lead for the moderation of the next roundtable related to the innovation opportunities based on the EIC Pathfinder results. I'm Marta Calderaro. I'm a national contact point in FET and part of the coordination team related to the access to EIC and CP network. And I'm here with Sander Dorembos and Brendan Sullivan. Sander Dorembos is coming from Single Quantum, a small and medium enterprise coming from Netherlands, which has won in the past a diverse range of FET research and innovation action, as well as instruments. We could say that starting from Super Twin, a FET Open project, then they won the MEDIS project, which was a FET Innovation Launchpad, and then the Brain Up project, which was a transition to innovation activities. So Sander is going to showcase a bit his experience on this. And then we are going also to have Brendan Sullivan from Politecnico of Milano, which is supporting the FET Briefing project, a coordination and support action dedicated to the exploitation of EIC Pathfinder results. So giving a brief introduction on their analysis of the FET Innovation Launchpad calls and what those projects have been find relevant in their activities. So I will start from Sander. I would like to ask Sander if you have the chance to listen to us. Just checking.
Hello?
Yes, hello. I can hear you. I cannot see you, actually, but I can hear you. Okay, hello, Sander.
Hello.
I wanted to ask to you, and I'm going to make you presenter in a while if you want to share your screen and share a bit regarding the information of the different projects. You are actually a really relevant example for the EIC Pathfinder ecosystem. Do you want to explain a bit regarding your proposal? In the case you have the chance to share your screen with your presentation. We can see it.
Yes, so I've been asked to to tell a bit about our projects that we have submitted and also won. So first of all, about single quantum. What we do is we already started in 2013 as a spin-off from Delft University of Technology, where I did my PhD on developing single photon detectors based on superconducting nanowires. These detectors, they are so sensitive that they can detect one single photon, and this, what you see here is what we have as a product now. On the right, top right, there's the microscope image of such a detector, and then we put these in a car set and also supply some electronics. So yeah, as I said, so this was developed in at the Delft University in the scientific work, and yeah, we have been quite lucky that that we found some customers for this, and at some point there were also fellow scientists. They were asking, can you use these detectors for detecting light? So now in the beginning they were just used for let's say in quantum optics experiments. Also a bit of laboratories that were working on quantum communication, so communication based on single photons. But these other scientists, they had an idea to make a new kind of microscope using quantum light, and they also had to use very sensitive light detectors. So that's why they were thinking about our sensors. However, our detectors were at that moment, they were still coupled to single mode virus, so they were very small. And for developing such a new microscope, we had to make them much larger, maybe 10 to 100 times larger, and this is totally not trivial. So this, as a start, we got funded this FET Open project, where we started to develop this microscope. Yeah, so I think the topic of today, innovation launchpad. So that was the next step, because we had some results, but to bring it to the market, it's of course very important to find some potential customers and know what these the customers want. And therefore, we applied for this innovation launchpad. So we had this idea that using this microscope is a much better resolution than conventional microscope. Would be nice to have it used for medical imaging. And not of course, one reason is that we thought medical imaging is very big market, and it's of course very important that medical diagnostics is a very important field. especially also today. So what we did during this innovation launchpad, we built a demonstration setup, but especially we did a lot of different conferences, medical conferences. As quantum scientists, we never been there before, but it was very useful for us. We learned a lot. We talked a lot to potential customers, and we even planned some demos. And also these demonstrations, they were done, and also learned a lot doing that. And so this was more or less the outcome of the Launchpad project. We found that indeed there's a very interesting market for medical imaging. First, there are a lot of laboratories working on medical imaging. That's we call scientific medical imaging market, and also in hospitals, of course. There's a lot of use. And we found some collaborators, potential users of our system. And with one of them, we wrote a follow-up project. So the project is a follow-up of this Launchpad project, where you can really improve the TRL of your system, of your product, and the idea is to also include a user of your project in the product in the project to make it to make it really fit to the market. This Brainiacs project that will start in October. So this is a bit the time frame that we have for how the communication of the microscope based on the superconducting nanowires in photon detectors. We started with an FET open project in 2015, and we followed up with Launchpad to look into potential customers, to find partners, and then this year we start the Brainiacs project. I think next step will be of course, to finish the microscope, demonstrate to potential customers, and then hopefully starting the first sales in the scientific medical market. And this will, we believe, this will be a stepping stone towards the industrialized or hospital market.
So thank you, Sander. You have actually, with this slide, I think that you have replied to more than one question that has been proposed to Marco Giorgini, because here you are showcasing that within the FET Open, or I would like to remember FET Proactive Research and Innovation Actions, you have demonstrated the systems to key opinion leaders. Then within the FET Innovation Launchpad, MEDIS, you have started to you have finalized this demonstration and started to make a first sales to scientific medical market. So also defining in concrete your business plan for this, I assume. Correct me if I'm wrong. And then with the future Brainiacs project, the transition to innovation activities, you are going to make it establish your position into the market. So this is actually something really relevant to understand. I would like to leave this slide for a while, but actually asking to Brendan Sullivan to also showcase to us the analysis of the FET Innovation Launchpad projects, which I'm going to showcasing to you in a while. I'm sorry, we have left it just within the latest slide. So, Brendan, would you like to showcase the FET briefing coordination and support section dedicated to the exploitation, the study on the Innovation Launchpad project? Unfortunately, I cannot hear you anymore, but maybe it's myself. Trying to check if it's only myself. Can I ask maybe, Sander, if you can try to talk? Yes, so it's that we cannot hear Brendan, actually. Okay, just for me to understand. Okay.
1 second, I'm...
Brendan, now we can hear you.
Okay, excellent. Okay, had to remove the headset. So thank you very much for sticking with us really quickly, and I'll try and get through a little bit of the information based on the study and then provide you with a little bit of detail about briefing, which is a project ongoing in collaboration with Launchpad to help facilitate the next progression within your research. And so moving forward, what we're looking at here within the project that we're trying to identify was mainly, if we can go to the next slide. What we were trying to figure out specifically was where the types of maturity levels were, what type of research was being used, and what were the needs of individual researchers to get to the next step, specifically as Sander was speaking within his previous slide, and as Marco had alluded to earlier in his presentation this morning. And so we focused on using this user-centered design approach by taking your feedback from other Innovation Launchpad projects and trying to identify how funds were used, what different types of trainings were met, and try to rectify and develop a set of solutions that could be easily applied to help progress moving forward. And so we can go to the next slide here real quick, and I'll talk about it. And so when we look at it as a whole, we began looking at the different organizations. So who was it that was specifically using or receiving funding for the Innovation Launchpad projects? And the biggest were, of course, focusing on research institutions, universities, and companies. So either spin-off companies such as Sander just described, or partnerships. And the main reason that this was a very critical point is that you have a different set of skill sets coming from the research environment, whether you're talking in an academic or if you're talking from a business perspective, your understanding and or affiliation or comfort level with different aspects of entrepreneurship, starting up a company, market identification, business valuation, all these different things make it a little bit difficult. And this is specific to some of the projects that are talking about. And so the largest area that previous projects that we were able to study have been focusing on are in medical technologies, human-to-computer interactions, but there's also a lot that's going on with new material development, applications for nanoscience and neuroscience, as well as some space applications. And so there's a broad variety, and we wanted to take each of these different projects, the different skills and compartments that these people were working in, and essentially bring everything together in a coherent way that allowed them to leverage their personal experience, all the while being able to also take full advantage of the Innovation Launchpad program, as well as trying to identify other areas of potential collaboration. We can go ahead and move forward. And so part of this with dealing with the collaboration was trying to figure out how many people and what types of experience we really had within the field and within the discipline. And to no surprise, a large amount of the FET technology was essentially coming from individuals with more than 10 years of experience within the industry, within the specific field. However, that's not necessarily to say within business acumen or so forth. So we wanted to make sure that this was understood. Also, we were trying to look at what types of technologies and what type of technical skills people already had in place. And so we were able to see that roughly 39% are focusing on a combination of technical skills within a detailed area of their research. But there's also about 26% skills that focusing within some elements of management. So whether that's within academic environments, dealing with department meetings and or ongoing projects, or project management, there's some level of business or project operations. And we wanted to make sure that these were reflected. And so we'll go ahead. What this was doing when we were looking at the projects and why researchers had applied for Innovation Launchpad, we found that a lot of it was focusing on exposure to a different variety set of challenges. And they were essentially trying to figure out a different set of needs. So as Marco had mentioned, the needs and the requirements of the Innovation Launchpad program are very, very well detailed. But there was also some misconceptions, perhaps by some researchers, about what to use it for. But we were trying to focus on this to help them alleviate some of the stress, to make sure that what they're doing is going to help them progress as researchers, as the cultivation of this research environment is the principal and targeted objective. And so when looking at it, previous projects essentially were using the funding for, as necessary, market development, some form of commercialization or partnership with industry, as well as some aspects of research development. However, there was issues or cases where the funding was used for prototyping, basic product development, and technology readiness level improvements. So there were a diffused number of reasons for why people were applying. And so we wanted to make sure that all of these different explanations and reasons were able to be met when moving forward with briefing that I'll talk about here in a little bit. And looking over how the financial resources were spent, how the funding was allocated, as we can see, a majority of it was used initially to pay staff. That was the general utilization of all ILP funding. It was used as $100,000. And then of that, the next portions were focusing on to better develop the technology and perform some form of business analysis. And so it was always covering some form of overhead. And so to make forth that as useful as possible, these skills that we'll be discussing wanted to make sure that each individual had access to it, whether through direct or indirect applications, and also had access to pre-recorded webinars and so forth, so that the staff with which is receiving the funding, doing the work, is able to increase and grow throughout the ILP project and throughout their FET development. Within the trainings that were attended by participants, the biggest and most important that were attended were business model development, business acumen, development of business models, as well as funding identification, as well as intellectual property rights, patenting, trying to identify what exactly can be patented, verification of the claims, how patenting and commercialization can be marketed or can be actually managed, and how partnerships and collaborations with universities can be dealt with, as well as some aspects of marketing, of trying to get out there and actually figuring out what's going on, who's using the technology, how the technology can be practically applied to current situations or emerging situations that are yet to be determined, but that we have an understanding of how this can be applied. And go ahead and move forward. When we looked at this, moving on, what we saw was that a large majority of this was always improving on a previous idea. So taking the projects that had already been in place and making sure that they're going to that next level, that next step in the development progress. Not always is that going to fall in line with some of the traditional TRL level management, in part because FET technology is generally a little bit lower the TRL levels. And so there's a little bit more that has to be considered rather than just the traditional product development or technology development phase. And so what we're talking about is how to identify the possible intended companies. So who could benefit from this technology? How would it be applied? What types of market obstacles, if any, are there? But also trying to increase your personal knowledge as a researcher and as a project manager to make sure that all the information with which is gathered, the experiences that you encounter, so this can be leveraged to help the projects move forward in a better fashion, and provide some form of verification that the research is online, that your idea is valid, that that you have success factors, such as what Sanders was discussing with his presentation. And we wanted to make sure that we're always able to move forward. So the needs that the companies are reflecting are always constantly changing. So we wanted to make sure that briefing that we'll discuss in just a moment was actually able to fulfill these needs. Okay.
Thank you, Brendan. I would like to ask you if we can turn from this slide to the briefing services.
Yes, that would be terrific. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going just through the...
Excellent. Thank you. So when looking at briefing and the services, essentially was developing access to a marketplace where individuals and researchers could gain information and be able to utilize all the different available services provided within the European Union and the European Commission, so that we can make sure that IPR strategy, business marketing, business acumen, and entrepreneurship skills can be done. And this began essentially by taking together all the research that we put together about how the projects were done, types of FET research that are taking place, so that we could then go ahead and try to customize an innovation opportunity workshop for you, which was thereby allowing you to essentially build out a canvas of what you believe and what you facilitate the research to be. And then from there, access to the actual marketplace where you're put into contact with, go to the next slide. You're put into contact with either a series of communication trainings, so you're able to work one-on-one or in a team development, a team dynamic, to focus on your communication skills and trying to communicate your research to business and stakeholders, as well as workshops focusing on innovation and IP strategy so that you as an individual feel more comfortable discussing intellectual property rights and protections, as well as the mechanisms that can be employed. And then the final three solutions and services that are offered in the next slide are focusing on online business training coaching, which is essentially providing you with a little bit of nuts and bolts of how to manage and create an individual, create your own startup, create your own company, how to take the technology to the next level. And then the final two is mentoring and webinars. The mentoring is used as a one-on-one identification of a specific mentor, either within the FET community or within industry that can help support you in assisting your FET research journey. And then the final is a culmination of different access points that allow for free access to pre-recorded presentations regarding intellectual property, management, and entrepreneurship, which are accessible all the time to any researcher to help support you throughout your journey. With that, I will go ahead and leave you. And just as a side note, next week at Future Tech Week, we'll be hosting several of the events discussed today for the solutions and services.
Thank you to Brendan, which actually defined in a really practical way all the activities that have been supported via the FET Innovation Launchpad. I'm trying to find the slide that I would like to showcase to all of you regarding the ELP results to be achieved within your proposals. And actually, I would like to come back to Sander and ask him which are the results that you have briefly explained in your MEDIS FET Innovation Launchpad project.
So we definitely.
Yes, because we cannot see you, so I don't know if you are here or not.
Yes, so we have definitely done a lot on identification of possible interested companies. Well, companies or customers, I would really call it. Yeah, so I think this is one of the most important aspects of of bringing technology to the market.
Okay, and actually we have also a proposal which was asking in your slide, which was the FET-TTI, the transition to innovation activity, which was a pilot action that was funded in November 2019, and will be probably part of the, of course not in that way, but it will be part in Horizon Europe in the fully fledged European Innovation Council. So if you, Sander, if you would like maybe to explain to us which are actually the differences between the MEDIS and the BRAINAC project. So the MEDIS, I would like to remember the FET Innovation Launchpad, and this BRAINAC project, the Transition to Innovation Activities, which was requesting to involve customers and users, but also investors. Can you maybe try to explain to us a bit?
Yeah, well, in my mind, it started even earlier with the FET Open project, where you have some idea that some very innovative idea, and then you in this FET Open you try to show some proof of principle. And when you are successful here, I think with the MEDIS, you let's say the innovation launchpad, this gives you the chance to really go out with your idea, see if others are as enthusiastic as you, and see what further developments are really needed to really finish a product that is useful for others. And this is really defined in the MEDIS project with developments we need. We more or less kind of made a small business plan to define the next steps, and then in this and then we were really happy to see this next goal, the transition to innovation technologies, because but there you really have the chance to build your have the funding to build your product, because I think still in Europe it is still extremely difficult to find funding, either from investors or from banks are of course really impossible. At the stage just after FET Open, when your product is at that stage, it's almost impossible to find other funding. That's why we are very happy with this opportunity.
Thank you. And I would like to ask Brendan, we have seen in your presentation the differences of the entities that were presenting the FET Innovation Launchpad and were within the consortium. We have also seen within the question and answer regarding the how it is distributed, the consortium of the FET Innovation Launchpad. Can you tell us a bit more? Do you think that there were also involved end users, or as a coordination and support action, just the research organization? I would like to come back to your slide about this. I'm going to find it in a while, but you can start talking if you wish.
So based off of our research teams that were involved, Generally speaking, a large majority of them are focusing strictly on the researchers. And specifically when talking about some within academic environment, the research institutions themselves, many times were either operated entirely by the project managers with the research staff essentially using the funding for essentially advancing the technology readiness levels. And that was one of the challenges there. As far as the companies that were being used in the research institutions, most of the funding there was actually a little bit more amply applied to market development, trying to actually get out and identify companies and individuals that would be able to build a partnership with them. And so one of the challenges and one of the things that the briefing was trying to do is specifically within the research environment, but also in the universities, was bridge this together so that encourage the research teams to get outside of their individual comfort zone. Well, we all have those areas, but actually try to get out there and talk to customers, identify what the market is, and try to figure out how to communicate your technology to would be interested parties.
Okay. Thank you, Brendan. The last question, coming back to Sander, the really last question, if you should give an advice to the proposer for the FET Innovation Launchpad, which would be?
Yes. Well, if I would just what has been said before, it's very important. To find customers, to find a market, because this is, I think, what is funding is meant for.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much to both Brendan Sullivan and Sander Dorembos. I will now go through the next part of the webinar. We are going into our final speech from Luis Casanova, which is our NCP in PI for the accelerator, and is also part of the Access to EIC NCP network. Luis, I'm going to share your presentation in a while. I'm sorry, it's on the last slide. Here we are.
Perfect. Can you hear me loud and clear?
Perfect.
So first of all, thanks a lot for this possibility to be here today. We are from Madrid now, working from home. But I'm here today to make you a presentation of what we have done in the Access to EIC regarding some tools to especially support this critical part between let's say, the end of the technology, TRL3. It's something that it seems to work and it seems to be promising to the really start of a business, which obviously the technology is relevant because in many cases these projects come from disruptive technologies, but the technology at the end of the day from a business perspective is just one of the pieces of the whole picture, let's call it that way. So the first thing I would like to touch on that is that our main aim with these tools is not to invent the wheel. We already know that there are many tools there, many support services, and entrepreneurship is evolving itself. So we are not trying to do any new invention of the wheel. We are not here for that. We are NCPs for Horizon 2020 now and for Future Horizon Europe. We are NCPs for the EIC, and our idea is try to make tools that will be useful for you when trying to even treat the templates, the official templates you have to do, in this case for the transition for the Launchpad, and especially for the future of the transition. So the idea with this first is, okay, try to analyze what is needed and try to develop what is most. I'm trying to cover three things. First is the what are the things that we are developing these tools. The second thing is how these tools work. And the final thing is where you can find these tools. So I think it's really the main three messages I would like you to take from this talk today. I think I don't have the power to go to the next, so Please, Martha, can you go to the next one? Thank you. Well, if you start thinking about business and probably the most useful or the most used tool is the business model canvas. As you may know, it is really the current reference to define, let's call it the business model itself. But if you can see the number of elements it has, it's really, let's say, separated into 4 parts. There is the company part, which is the left part, when you can see your key people, your key personnel, and your key resources. There is the market, which is the right part, when you see which is your customer and how are you going to reach them and how are you going to ensure that you have some relationship with them. And in the middle of the part, you will have the offer, which is basically your technology and how your technology fits in a product or a service and how this product is offered to the market. So far, when we talk about, you are going too fast, please come back to the previous one. Thank you. Probably when you think about the status of your current projects, most of the work is done on the offer. Let's see why my technology is better, how does my technology work, what can my technology do. So these are the elements that are typically covered in these cases. But apart from that, the business is not only that. You need to make sure that your offer is relevant for your client, but also you have to ensure that the finance of the business makes sense. So you need to understand your costs, you need to understand your prices, you need to understand how are you going to make the revenue. So at the end of the day, this business model canvas is very useful to make a business model as complete as possible or as complete as needed, especially depending on the point you are in the business development, which is the next step. So can you please go ahead, please? So again, if you have seen TRL, I think we have taken that in our lives. If you are working in Horizon 2020, probably it's a scale you know more or less by heart, even though, especially in some sectors, the limitations or the boundaries between some TRLs is not that clear. We can more or less say that from 0 to 5, you are still talking about research. You are doing things at the laboratory scale. So even with large prototype, you are not yet working on, let's say, operative conditions. From 6 to 8 seems to be on a demonstration stage. So the technology is getting close to its extended or expected operation environment. And finally, when you're talking about TRL 9 in Horizon 2020, you are thinking about commercialization. You are talking about deployments. You are talking about sales. Okay, I think that TRL scale is really is widely used, and it's good for measuring the technology situation, but not for where is your business. So we are introducing a second scale, which is the next one. So can you go ahead, please? Which is the BRL scale, which is the market readiness level scale, or even the business readiness level scale. At the end of the day, with this, we try to measure how developed is the business. So similarly to technology, we can think that business is conceptually in phase when you are in BRLs from 0 to 3. I mean, you have an idea, you think that there is some market for that, you think that this idea has to take form of a product or a service. You need to ensure that what you think is that your clients may think. So it's a kind of conceptualization of the business. So you can make it in a number of ways. For instance, the business model canvas is one of it. And let's say it's still paperwork. It is still analysis. It is still obviously testing with some clients, but it is not yet running. Then you have the business testing of that. When you test the business model or a business insight, you start to make some trials with clients. Especially you start with some, let's say, close clients or friend clients or early adopters. Try to see if it works. Try to see if it's really you are able to sell it, and especially you are able to sell it with the type of thinking you have in the very beginning. And then when we're talking about deployment, then you have clients coming back, and you start to really become a business. So if we can say BRL scale, we can 3 different parts. One is the concept, the second one is the test, and finally is the deployment. If you think on the EIC as it is now, and it will be fully fledged in Horizon Europe, probably the EIC transition to innovation activities is trying to get and trying to support companies or research center to get to a business concept itself. Probably the EIC Accelerator will help companies to test and deploy their businesses in the market. So I think this business readiness level scale will fit quite well with the logic of the new EIC acceleration, and that is the logic of using it as reference also for our tools. So can you go ahead, please? So with these two concepts, we developed a first glossary, which is, let's say, the starting point. As the previous presenter said, there are many different stakeholders involved in FET Open or FET Proactive or even FET Launch projects. We can have people already keen on business and many others which are not really familiar with this concept. So we made a glossary. We include 130 business terms. We separated them between 4 parts of the business model canvas, those that make reference to companies, that might make reference to the offer, to the market or the finance. But also we make some separation depending on the status of your business. Probably now you are starting to make your conceptualization of your business. It's not so relevant to know all the different clusters that the VC will have in the following investment, probably. So we make this separation so you have a clear and easy to see guide on these business terms. Okay, that's the starting point as NCPs for our whole new stakeholder forum of the whole EIC. But there we would like also to offer some specific tools for participants, especially in this transition to innovation activities or Launchpad. So for that, we try to make a robot definition of our clients. In fact, we did it with the help of the Commission, with the help of REA, and with the help of FET NCPs. We developed a questionnaire with some FET coordinators, and more or less we found that these 3 elements were quite common. In principle, some of them or most of them will have some IP relevant with perceived commercial value, not yet how much and not yet how far. In principle, they will all have TRL 3 to 4 technologies, and in many cases, so far at general level. So they are applicable to more than one sector. They can be applicable to more than one vector, or one vertical. So it's really relevant to know where to start. And finally, some of them or most of them will have some agreed exploitation rights, I mean, who is going to have the capacity to make the exploitations, but not really how are they going to do it. So based on that robot, we make them a very clear question on depending on what do they need for the next step. We got basically 3 main requests. The next slide, please. The first one is about IP. Okay, with the patent, we have some still in the patent, we are making the climbing. It's really critical in these steps, but now we need to manage them properly. We need to manage the IP itself, but also the portfolio and even the valuation of this IP in order to see how much, let's say, value does this IP add to my company. The second thing is about business opportunity and scalability. We have a technology very useful. It can serve for many purposes. Okay, where should I start? Where my business opportunity may be bigger? So it's really relevant to make the decision at this point, because if decision will let's say devote resources at short term from my company. And finally, if we think that we are the only one providing a solution, we are wrong. Probably you are the only one with the technology, but you are trying to solve a common problem or a needed problem. So take that into account. You need to see at least at very early stage how far are you from the market and which is the race you are trying to compete in such market. It's not going to the detail of the tough competition, but really to start to have a first map on that. So for that, we have 3 main offers to develop from our network, and these are the 3 main issues. One is the IP score. I mean, we're talking about IP's valuation. Now, this is not developed by us. So we make a strong benchmark on what was available, and we found this tool from the European Patent Office. Obviously, they are experts on that, so we are not going to enter into that. So we just would like to reassigned companies or proposals, if you are trying to interested in managing this, to go to this IP score, try to have a look on that, try to see how it works, and because there are some valuable assets there in the European Patent Office. Then we talk about business opportunity. Then we did develop a tool for that. We call it DSize, and we are talking to you about that in a few minutes. And then we did a tool for competition to make it happen. We call it a TV map, which is going to present it in a few minutes. So how did it work, and what is the scope of these two tools we have developed in this network, apart from the glossary? So the first is the BSize. The idea of the BSize is trying to give you a first measure of your business opportunity. So the question is, we would like to answer is, which market opportunity looks more interesting for you? So why should I start by this vertical instead of the other? So we try to make a very simplistic calculations, trying to cover 4 things. The first thing is individuals is a kind of, we are going again, thank you, stopping there. You are going to individuals, so you are trying to measure how big your client base can really be. The second thing, which is repetition, is try to look a bit more on how many times your need is solved a year. I mean, if it's like you are selling one product a year, or you are selling one product each week, it's not probably it's relevant to know this repetition. The third one is knowing about the economics, knowing about which is the price you are thinking about, which is your margins you are thinking about. You have to make sure that your individuals, your repetition, and your economics make sense. And finally, which are the potential trends you may have in this market? Is the market going up? Is the market going down? Is there some special things that may happen in that market? So the idea is these 4 elements are compared with 3 markets. So you select 3 markets, you put the information. As you can see, 7 fields of information. We need your inputs. Obviously, these inputs has to be thought. It's really numbers, but these numbers have to be somehow forced by, or let's say have some relevance for you. And then you have some quantitative elements on how difficult it would be for you to make some things. So instead of putting your numbers, you just make a selection of 0 to 5. So it's not difficult. It's very difficult, and try to get to there. So with that, we make a simple calculation with the beta size today, which is very simple, as you say there, the clients, the price, and the times per year. So it's really, let's say, a first estimation of the size of this business. And the key point here is that these elements you are measuring, the 0 to 5, somehow weight each of these multipliers. So the client, the price, and the times per year is somehow corrected depending on your inputs on the 0 to 5 fields, depending on segmentation. How are you able to segment your customer or not? How are you able to reach them? Do you have some easy to reach them, or they're not so easy to reach? And obviously, how easy is to serve them, because probably you may have clients close that you are easy to serve, and some others which are not so easy. So that is the logic of this B-sizing. Okay. So then we make a second calculations with this tool, is try to see a forecast of how this business size that you are today can look in 3 years. So we take into account the trends you are included, and try to weight them, the growth of this size depending on the trends. Okay, so at the end of the day, what you get here is a first estimation on how big can be your market and how the market looks like in 3 years. So if you have a look about the tool, it looks like the following slide. You can see it that way. So it's in Excel, so you can fill the things, and you can customize somehow if it's needed. I mean, we are put some weights which are already from literature, so it's more or less, let's say, relevant. Obviously, if you are very keen, you can make some modification, but that's up to you. Okay, but that's the first of the tool with the objective of giving you a raw estimation of how big the market opportunity can be. The second thing is, how does your race to the market look like? So the idea is you are not alone in that. Probably you are alone in the technology, because it's quite attractive. You may have a patent, that's right. But perhaps you are trying to cover a need which is already covered somehow, or it's going to be covered by other kind of actors. So the idea of this tool is try to look around you in 4 categories. Category number one is which is called the standard solutions that are currently solving your product or your problem you are trying to solve or your needs. The second is about technologies, which are the current technologies used for that. The third one is looking at the IPs. I mean, obviously you have a patent, but perhaps you may have some other companies with some patents trying to solve the same problem that you. And finally, you have founding projects. You know that H 2020 cover many things, cover many projects, many technologies, many TRL levels. So you need to see which of them really is competitive for you. So the idea of this tool is you are able to select 3 cases per each of these 4 categories. You have 4 questions per case, trying to get more information on that. It's a frame, so it's for you to fill in and for you to think about these 4 kind of cases. And then you need to make a kind of TRL and BRL assessment per case. So just to make sure that you more or less understand which technology level they are and which are the business readiness level they are. And at the end of the day, you are able to get out, you can next step, a photograph like that. What does it mean? You have a BRL scale, which is the business readiness level. You have the TRL scale, which is the technology readiness level. And you have a nice map of different solutions, different technologies, different API, different projects compared with you. So why is it useful? Well, it is useful because first you see which are your main critical competitors in your race to market. Probably you are not here in TRL 7, probably you are previously here, and you can cite other technologies that are still trying to do the same as you are trying. Probably you are having a disruptive technology and your solution looks nicer, but it's nice to have this in mind. Obviously, you can use it. Please come back if you're to the previous slide. Obviously, you can use it to make this analysis into your application because you are asking for a transition. So you are asking to give some insights toward your destination. So this is a quite input you can really put in your proposal itself. He has to give you a flavor of to the commission and to the evaluators that you are already looking at that situation. Again, this is in Excel, and as the next slide, you can see how this Excel look like. Obviously, with the my final comment on that is the next one. These tools, can you go to the next one, please? Thank you. These tools are for thoughts. I mean, if you are not adding brain to this, the output has no value. So it's not really like a magic numbers, but it's really a frame for you to think about the key elements you may need to think about, depending on the size. So, I mean, depending if you are talking about the business size or depending on if you are talking about the position in TRL and BRL. So finally, where you can find them, which is the last slide from me today. Obviously, the IPO score, you can find it directly on the Apple website. You have the tool, you need to register to get down it. You need the templates. Sorry, you have there a kind of guides. And the rest of things, the business glossary, which is a PDF, the B-size and the MIMBAC, which are Excels. You can find them in our website in the access to EIC.eu. Publications, it will be available next week, probably. You will have also a deliverable called the Deliverable 4.1, where you have the guidelines explained of these tools, and you can find more information about how to make it fit. And especially for NCPs, we are trying to get a practical workshop with that, probably before the end of the year, try to work with them, try to get familiar with them, and even make some cases with them to practice if we are able to support participants when trying to use it. Obviously, as we commented before, as from national contact point of view, these are tools to help you in the process to make your proposals or even to implement your projects. Obviously, they are not compulsory to use. It is just for you to use it if they are useful for your purposes. And I think with that, we can finalize. For us, we can have our contacts in our CDTI and myself, and obviously the coordinator, which is Antonio Carbone from APRE. if you need more information on that. So thank you a lot. If you have some questions, we can now go. Thank you.
Thank you to Luis Guerra Casanova, which was explaining us the access to EIC tool, which is going to be launched in the really next future within our website. So I'm going to finalize this day with since I have not seen other relevant questions within the chat or the Q&A. Of course, you are always free to write a question for our speakers. In the case we do not have them, I just would like to finalize our webinar for today, our info day. Just checking the different presentation. A few slides on the next appointment that we have, the next meeting that we are going to have. Of course, we have with Antonio Carbone presentation, we have an insight from the Research and Innovation Days program, which are going to be held next week. So just for you to know that the registration are still open, so you can just register, to the Research and Innovation Days website, and you will be able to access the European Innovation Council Hub. So there are a few sessions that are relevant for the EIC Pathfinder ecosystem, so mainly dedicated these slides to the EIC Pathfinder, of course, within the Hub 8 dedicated to the European Innovation Council. There are relevant ones also related to the accelerator field. So the session organized by the European Commission, which is going to talk about the EIC Pathfinder Future Path, with Jean-David Malo, Director of the EIC Task Force, Dermot Diamond, EIC Advisory Board member, Cristina Silva Pereira from FET Open Project, Paolo Dario from FET Proactive Project, as well as probably Christian Buzoi, Chairman of the Trade Commission. Then we are going to have, this is going to be held, on the 22nd of September between 15 to 4 p.m. Then we are going to have 4 different sessions called Voices from the Future, which are going to be organized within the frame of the Future Tech Week, the week that is dedicated to celebrate the EIC Pathfinder project. I would like to remember you that within the whole week, all the EIC Pathfinder projects have the possibility to showcase their results by simply using Twitter accounts within an hashtag. So check the website of the Future Tech Week. And in those different sessions, several sessions, 4 sessions, 2 within the 22nd and 2 within the 23rd in the morning and afternoon. Within those 2 different sessions, we are going to have a Nobel laureate, the EIC program manager related interview, an EIC pilot advisory board member, and as well different roundtables which are going to discuss the different future paths of the technological trends emerging, the latest EIC Pathfinder calls. Then we are going to have the previously mentioned Access to EIC live session dedicated to the transition activities, which is going to be held on the 23rd of September, and is going to have a set of relevant speakers inside. And then we are going also to have an organized session by the European Commission on the latest day, the 24th of September, dedicated to a co-creation session on top-down topics in EIC Pathfinder. What was the FET Proactive calls for since the latest year? So this is something that could be relevant as well. So thank you to everyone. I just would like to thank you all for being here. I have written in the chat that all the presentation and recording of this webinar are going to be published in the Access to EIC dedicated web page. We are going to publish also the question and answers that we have received during the day, in particular after our project officer from EIC Task Force, Marco Giorgini. And I would like to remember you have also published, the feedback form. We have also to report about our training efforts. So if you can complete the feedback form, this could be great for us in order to improve our services dedicated to you. Thank you to all, and have a nice day, and thank you to our amazing speakers today. Bye-bye.